Before us, another kind of human walked this earth. They lived through cold that would kill an unprotected person in hours. They raised their children in the same caves for generation after generation. They buried their dead with flowers. For 300,000 years, they endured everything this planet threw at them. Then, in the space of a few thousand years, they were gone. But not entirely. 400,000 years ago, Europe was not a place built for anything soft. The continent sat locked inside a climate cycle of extraordinary violence. Ice ages grinding down for tens of thousands of years at a stretch, followed by brief warm intervals, then freezing again. Glaciers kilometers thick covered what would become Britain, Scandinavia, and northern Germany. South of the ice, the land opened into a vast steppe, sparse, wind-blasted, and brutally cold for 6 months of every year. Temperatures in winter routinely dropped below -20 degrees. Resource clusters, valleys, and riverbanks then vanished. Megafauna defined the landscape: woolly mammoths in herds of dozens, woolly rhinoceroses, cave bears weighing 500 kilograms, cave lions larger than any lion alive today. This was not a world that tolerated weakness. For 200,000 years, one species had already been calling this frozen continent home. They had not arrived recently. They had not stumbled into Europe by accident. They had evolved here, shaped by its cold, built by its demands, and they were ready for it. And into this world of ice and predators and relentless cold, the Neanderthals had arrived long before us, and they would outlast conditions that would have destroyed our ancestors entirely. The first thing you would notice, if you stood beside one, is that they do not look entirely unlike us. Same 2 eyes, same upright posture, same hands, more or less. But look closer, and the differences tell you everything about the world they came from. Neanderthal skeletons, recovered from more than 400 sites across Europe and Western Asia, show a body engineered for cold and power. Their limbs were shorter relative to their torso, a proportion that reduces surface area, conserving heat. Their nasal cavities were dramatically larger than ours, warming and humidifying air before it reached the lungs. Their burps, dense, built to withstand repeated, high-impact physical stress. Biomechanical analysis, published in the Journal of Human Evolution, found that Neanderthal muscle mass likely exceeded modern human averages by 30 to 50%. Their grip strength, reconstructed from cortical bone thickness in the hand, would have been extraordinary, but physical power was never the most interesting thing about them. In 2017, researchers from the Max Planck Institute extracted dental calculus from Neanderthal teeth recovered in El Sidrón Cave in northern Spain. Inside that calculus, they found evidence of medicinal plants, yarrow and groundsel, both bitter and of no nutritional value whatsoever. One individual appeared to have consumed significant quantities of poplar bark, which contains salicylic acid, the active compound in aspirin. They were not eating these plants by accident. They were self-medicating, managing pain and infection with knowledge of the landscape around them. The sun rises over the valley in silence. Frost still clings to the pine needles, catching the early light. Somewhere below, where the river bends, something large moves through the mist. Neanderthal survival was built on close-quarter confrontation with the largest animals in the world. Their primary hunting weapon was a thrusting spear, driven directly into prey from a distance of meters, not dozens of meters. Biomechanical modeling found fracture patterns strikingly similar to modern professional rodeo riders. Repeated, high-energy trauma to the upper body consistent with close-contact struggle with large animals. They hunted by going in. In the caves of Salzgitter-Lebenstedt, zooarchaeologists recovered remains indicating systematic hunting of reindeer on mass migration routes. At Comgrenel in France, the faunal record shows consistent, selective hunting of bison and horses. This was strategic, planned, coordinated across groups. And then there is the evidence from Shanidar Cave in Iraqi Kurdistan, first excavated in the 1950s. Among the 9 Neanderthal skeletons recovered, There was one designated Shanidar 1, an adult male who had survived to rough 40 years of age. His right arm had been amputated, likely deliberately, above the elbow. He was nearly blind in one eye from a blow to the head. He had severe arthritis throughout his body. He could not have survived alone. Someone fed him. Someone carried him. Someone maintained his presence in the group, when he could contribute almost nothing in return. The evidence from Shanidar tells us something that no stone tool ever could. Neanderthals understood obligation to the weak. We have called them primitive for 2 centuries. We have drawn them with sloped foreheads and blank eyes in our textbooks and our museums. We have made them the before in our story of becoming. But the evidence no longer supports that reading. The light fades slowly over Europe. Somewhere in a valley below, smoke rises from a fire kept burning for days. The air smells of pine resin and meat. Above the tree line, the first stars are appearing in a sky with no name for them yet. In the 1970s, archaeologists excavating Bruniquel cave in southwestern France discovered something that stopped them. Deep inside the cave, 336 meters from the entrance, far beyond any natural light, were 2 ring-shaped structures made from broken stalagmites. The rings were large enough for several people to stand within. Stalagmites had been deliberately snapped from the cave floor and arranged with care. Traces of fire had been set inside them. Uranium series dating, published in Nature in 2016, placed the construction at 176,000 years ago. Homo sapiens would not arrive in Europe for another 130,000 years. Neanderthals had built a structure in the absolute darkness of a cave for a purpose that was not survival. There is no nutritional explanation for Bruniquel. There is no warmth explanation. The structure served no practical function. They went there, deep into the dark, and built something. That is a behavior with a word for it. We call it ritual. In 2018, a team led by Dr. Dirk Hoffman published uranium thorium dating results for cave art across 3 sites in Spain. The paintings, geometric shapes, hand stencils, animals, dated to a minimum of 65,000 years ago. Modern humans would not arrive in Europe for another 20,000 years. The oldest known art in Europe was made by Neanderthals. Hold on that image. They decorated themselves with eagle talons, found at Crepina in Croatia, dated to 130,000 years ago. Drilled and polished and strung together. They used manganese dioxide and ochre as pigments. They collected shells from the sea and carried them inland. Every one of these behaviors, before 2010, was considered exclusive to anatomically modern humans. Every one has now been documented in Neanderthals. 45,000 years ago, a different kind of human entered Europe from the east. Homo sapiens. Less powerful, but carrying something the Neanderthals did not have, was not intelligence. The difference was scale. Neanderthal social groups averaged 15 to 20 individuals. Their trade networks extended, at most, a few dozen kilometers. When climate shifted, groups with larger networks could redistribute resources across regions. Groups without those networks could not. It was not a single cause. It never is with extinctions. Climate instability compressed their habitat. Competition for the same prey species increased. Their small population size meant genetic diversity was already low. Evidence of severe inbreeding in the last populations, reducing immune function. And there was interbreeding, not war. Genetic evidence confirms that Neanderthals and Homo sapiens interbred on multiple occasions across tens of thousands of years. They were not entirely separate peoples. In Gibraltar, the last known Neanderthal populations held on. Gorham's Cave holds their final record. Hearths, food remains, stone tools. Then the layers go silent. A group, likely small, looked out at the Atlantic from a cave on a rock, at the edge of the world, and then they were gone. But they did not disappear entirely. In 2010, when Svante Pääbo's team published the first draft of the Neanderthal genome, they included a finding they had not expected. Between 1% and 4% of the DNA of every person alive today, with ancestry outside sub-Saharan Africa, is Neanderthal in origin. Your immune system carries genes inherited from them, variants that help fight certain pathogens in ways that pure Homo sapiens populations did not initially possess. The gene variant associated with red hair in some populations traces to Neanderthal ancestry. The physiological adaptations that allow some human populations to tolerate cold, present across northern Europe and East Asia, show Neanderthal genetic signatures. The woman who pressed her hand against that cave wall 65,000 years ago is not entirely gone. She is distributed, carried forward in fragments, scattered through 2 billion people. Her immune system is still fighting. Her genes for cold tolerance still active in bodies that have never seen ice. 300,000 years ago, a species walked into the coldest continent on Earth and called it home. They painted in the dark. They cared for the injured. They mourned their dead. They made art before we did. They did not lose to something lesser. They were absorbed into something larger, carried forward not as a defeat, but as a foundation. Every person who has ever shivered in winter and pushed through anyway carries something of them.